In the year 2011, Bethesda Studios released their most successful and highest-selling game they've ever made, The Elder Scrolls V: Skyrim. 7 years later, in 2018, they decided to come out and release this. I mean, just wow. Who needs the game to come out when you have this? That's obviously a joke, right? Well, it seems like Bethesda might actually just believe that, because there hasn't been any news about Elder Scrolls 6 since then. They released this teaser thing 6 years ago and then just nothing. I'm genuinely okay with them taking a while to make an incredible game, but why did you guys release the teaser? That little intro thing was supposed to be funny because the teaser doesn't really have anything in it, but even now I get a little excited when I watch that for some reason. Like, you see this whole wide open world to go and explore, but it's for a game that isn't out yet. So the next best thing for me to do is imagine what this game could be like and all the things, big or small, that I want in it. I really have an open canvas here because the only real news about this game is that trailer and the podcast Todd Howard did with Lex Friedman, where he talked about Elder Scrolls 6 for like 20 minutes. What? That's like nothing. Anyway, this interview is a great starting point because he talks about something I am overjoyed about. For a large portion of this Elder Scrolls section, Todd talks about mods. Specifically, he talks about how they'll keep supporting mods. This is super important because mods have allowed other Bethesda games like Skyrim and Fallout 4 to stay as popular as long as they have. I'm glad they're keeping mod support, but people won't mod it if the base game isn't already fun how it is. So what would make Elder Scrolls 6 the best one yet? I think you first have to look at what the older Elder Scrolls games did well, and then see if that can be built upon in the next one. The most basic thing that comes to mind when I think about what a game like Skyrim did so well is Skyrim is absolutely beautiful with its lush forests and high snowy peaks. Obviously this is really nice, but we can't just have the same exact map in the next game. Every Elder Scrolls game goes somewhere different to at least the last game that came before it. So where could this next game take place? Let me just do some research. So this IGN article says that the next location will probably be Hammerfell, and I think that's probably true. If we look at what we saw in the teaser here, it shows all of these jagged peaks, and the ocean here looks like it's kind of tropical, at least tropical compared to the frozen ocean in Skyrim. Not only does Hammerfell have terrain just like that, but it also has more, like deserts and swamps. This varied landscape would be incredible for the next game, and I really hope it's set here. Now, some of Hammerfell has been seen in older games, but the last one to show it looked like an old Minecraft mod, so I think we're due for another trip here. If we aren't getting Hammerfell, I think Elsewhere would be a really cool place to take the series. It's never been seen outside of Elder Scrolls Online in the first game, and the first game doesn't even count, and online isn't the same as the mainline game, so we've really never even been here. Maybe you could make the main story about the drug trade in Elsewhere, and everyone plays as either a Walter White or a Jesse Pinkman. For real though, Elsewhere would be a pretty solid place to have the game, and my third pick would be like Valenwood or something. Valenwood? Who cares? The real important part of wherever we are in the world is filling it out with interesting things to do. A really good open world game like Breath of the Wild throws a bunch of stuff everywhere all over the map. So if you want to go check something out, you'll be rewarded for it. Doing this makes people actually want to explore the in-game world. Putting absolutely nothing between the player's location and the objectives does the absolute opposite of this. The player is going to feel like they have no reason to explore, and it'll make for a pretty boring game. Skyrim had a cool way of doing this by putting ruined castles and caves throughout the map that you could just clear out whenever you wanted to. You'd get a ton of loot from this, which is a good reward, and at the castles you'd notice guards from whatever hold you're in guard the castle. I mean, since it's Skyrim, it wouldn't work perfectly like this every time, but when it did work, it was pretty cool. I want more stuff like this. Stuff the game doesn't tell you to do every time, but when you do it, you get rewarded for it. And then the world changes to show you have an actual impact on it. Speaking of decisions you make having an impact on what happens in the game, how about we talk real quick about the character creation? At the start of every relatively recent Elder Scrolls game, you start by customizing your character. Now, I understand these games are supposed to be serious or like whatever, but let me make my weird little creature like I did in Oblivion again. Anyway, in my segue into this section, I mentioned that the character creation has an impact on your game, and it does. Depending on what race you pick at the start of the game, you can be better or worse at certain things. So if you pick a Khajiit, you're much more sneaky. Or if you pick a red guard, you're strong and you can smith better and Anyway, there's also abilities with each race, which can be useful, like how High Elves have 50 more magicka, or even more useful, like how Argonians can breathe underwater. Yeah, that's right, you can be a water lizard. I love these little features, and I want these to go even further. Each race only has one real trait that's exclusive to them, and I think if they had more, I would play a super sexy water lizard even faster. These new traits could actually affect the game world. Kinda like how if you play as an orc, you can get into the orc stronghold city without becoming, what's it called, like blood brothers or something? Maybe if you pick a high elf, you can be evil with the Altmeri people, if those little freaks are still around in the time period that Elder Scrolls 6 is in. If you couldn't tell, I think what's really important to what makes a good Elder Scrolls game is the interactions you have with the world and the characters that live inside it. I've already talked about the world in this video, so how about I talk about the other part, which is the NPCs. Bethesda is the studio you think about when the word NPC is brought up. These guys are pretty damn iconic, and that can be for better or for worse. Mainly these iconic and memorable NPCs are followers, and in Skyrim you spend a lot of time with followers. These followers are kind of a mixed bag though. We have some actually deep characters with wants and dreams or whatever, but then we have like 10 generic mercenaries that are just super boring. Now, a couple generic ones are okay, that makes the really good ones stand out even more, but there are a lot of them, and there's even some followers that don't have names. I don't think I've ever heard anyone say, yeah, my favorite follower is Dark Brotherhood Initiate. If I have a follower, I'm going on an adventure with them, so I want them to have some sort of personality. Like Lydia is probably going to be your first actually good follower in Skyrim, and usually she's nice and stuff, but occasionally she has this little sass which makes me laugh and feel a little bad for making her carry all my stuff. Good followers make me want to go out and explore the world with these interesting characters, but when they're completely nameless, I have no reason to want to pick them other than like stats. Ideally, this next game wouldn't have any nameless NPCs outside of the generic enemies, and also the guards being nameless is okay too. I know Starfield is a massive game and it would be impossible to name every NPC, and it's fine they didn't do that there, but in Elder Scrolls 6, the cities cannot be filled with generic citizen NPCs. This would make the game feel less immersive and make this RPG feel more just like a G. This might be controversial, but I think it would be great if there weren't any essential NPCs in the next Elder Scrolls. Like maybe 1 or 2 or something if the story really needs it, but Fallout New Vegas didn't have any essential NPCs and that game turned out great. Like if you killed someone important, the whole game world could react and that would be so sick. Wait, I think that means Serana could die though. Actually, let's scratch that. Talking to NPCs has always been fun in Elder Scrolls games, but I think the persuasion and intimidate options need a bit of an update. In Oblivion, there was this wheel thing, and if I'm being honest, I don't know how this thing works at all, so let's just leave that in the past. Starfield had this minigame that seems fun and gets easier the higher speech skill you have, which is pretty cool. New Vegas lets you persuade someone to do things if you have a high enough skill in that thing you're trying to do, so it doesn't have a huge reliance on speech like how Skyrim does. All I'm saying is there's a lot of ways it could be updated from the state it is in Skyrim. Which if you don't know, it's just a game of talent and skill where you just reload your save until you get past the speech check. Yeah, that's what I like to call good gameplay. And I guess since I just mentioned it, let's just talk about gameplay. Most of what you do in Skyrim is talk to NPCs, explore some area, or fight enemies. I guess I've talked about the first 2 things in that list, so I'll actually just talk about the combat for this section. So yeah, I lied, this is combat, not all gameplay. Past Elder Scrolls games aren't really known for their crazy combat. I would really love it if they added any amount of depth into this combat, because sometimes in Skyrim, I feel like I just need a better weapon and armor to progress through the game rather than getting better at the game. If they added things like a dodge or a parry system, it would make the player feel like they have a chance in any fight if they play well enough. Now you could balance this by making the dodges and parries and stuff hard to pull off correctly so the game doesn't become a cakewalk. And you could still allow for players to build their class how they do in Skyrim. So for instance, if you're a mage, the parry system doesn't apply to you at all. Speaking of builds, just like I said, I really hope they continue to allow players to build themselves into whatever they want to be. It's one of my favorite aspects about Skyrim, and I think the game would be worse without it. Like, you could be a one-handed build, a mage, which might be the worst class ever made in any video game ever, a stealth archer like everyone on every playthrough ever. You could even be like me and be completely brainless and have a build field where you just run into people swinging and don't do anything else? Maybe they should work on balancing the game a little bit more next time. But if we gave the player these upgraded classes and new tools to fight enemies with, I think that the enemies should also get a little bit of an upgrade too. Mainly with just the AI. No, not that AI. Well, I guess they're kind of similar, but that's not really important right now. The AI in most Bethesda games are just like little toddlers learning how to walk up the stairs. They do not know where they're going or what they're doing most of the time, and Bethesda really needs to upgrade them for the next game. I think that's all the big topics I have, but there are a few more things I want to talk about that aren't big enough for their own section. The stealth in Skyrim is really fun, especially when you have it really high, but they could probably use an update for this system. I don't have any big ideas on what that upgrade should be, but it could use an upgrade. Another thing I really hope they don't have in the next game is level scaling. If you don't know what that is, basically every enemy in the game is scaled to your level at least a little bit. So it kind of makes you feel like you're not improving as much as you are, especially when you're upgrading your skills, because everyone else is upgrading with you. They implement this so you can go anywhere you want from the start of the game. But if you run into a hard section, just go to an easier section, get stronger there, and then come back. Or if you're really skilled at the game, you could try a challenge and fight in the hard section. I don't understand why this is in the game. I'm pretty sure they always do this in every Elder Scrolls game, but I really like it when they call back to older Elder Scrolls games in the new one. They could do this by having books written by some of the characters in Skyrim, or having iconic weapons like the wind shear. Actually, that's a little overpowered. Let's just leave the wind shear in Skyrim. You could actually have a character or two from Skyrim in the next one. High elves live for a really long time in this universe, so you could have one of the iconic ones from Skyrim in the next one. Like, maybe... I can't really think of any high elves, actually. Ankano? No, he died. I don't know, dark elves also live for a long time. So do vampires, and probably other elves, so maybe one of those? I don't know. It would be great if, well, you know how Todd said, "All of this just works." How about that be true this time? Like, I completely understand a few bugs here and there when the game comes out. You know, a few floors you can just fall through, maybe a quest here or there that doesn't entirely work properly, but please can this game be mostly functional at launch? Bethesda has a track record of having the most broken games ever, so how about you guys prove us wrong and make a game that isn't completely broken? What else? Please don't make this an Xbox exclusive like you did for Starfield. My PC sucks, so I couldn't run it, and I don't have an Xbox, so I'd be forced to spend hundreds of dollars to play this game. That's kind of all I can think about right now. If you guys have any other ideas, you should leave them in the comments below, and I would love to read them. I'm probably going to think of something else as soon as I hit publish on this, but for right now, this is what I want out of the next Elder Scrolls game. I know Bethesda has had a rough last couple of years and their public perception has gotten a little worse, but I really have faith in these guys and want this game to be incredible. If it ends up completely different than what I want, it doesn't mean it's bad. Honestly, it could be completely different and better than I could have ever dreamed of. I just want the best game possible. Thank you so much for watching. It would be so awesome if you liked the video, and it would help me a lot if you subscribed, so you could do that. I love making videos like this, and it's really cool when people actually watch them, so for real, thank you for watching this. That's kind of all I have for today, so yeah. Okay, bye.